right. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy that you're here, and Dr. Judy and I are so excited for you to join us today. So we are going to have a really good show today, and this show is going to be all about your dog and your dog's health during this tough time during the 4th of July. So welcome. I'm looking for what I need to say. Of course it's not there. Well, guys, thank you so much for being patient with me as I go and find and fuddle around. So welcome to the Art of Healing with your host, Dr. Judy Jasek of Animal Healing Arts and Matt Rowe of ParsleyPet. During our show, we are talking about your pet's health, raw feeding, and alternative treatments for cancer, unexplained illnesses, and supporting your pet's natural ability to heal. So welcome, Dr. Judy, to this week's show.
Thanks, Matt. Happy to be here as always. And I think this is such an important topic because so many pets get lost or injured over the 4th of July because they get scared and they just lose their minds. And, once again, this year, people are going to want to be out and about. And, we talked before about the COVID dogs that were not been left alone very much. And now if they're left alone over the 4th, where there's all the noise and the fireworks, it can be really terrifying for some dogs.
It absolutely is. You shared a stat with me. What was it that, is it that the Humane Society, not the Humane Society, but the rescue centers receive a mass influx of dogs during this 4th of July holiday?
Yeah, because they get out of their yards. People will leave them outside, or they have doggy doors and they're outside and they get scared. And, when animals get scared, that fight or flight kicks in and there's nothing to fight. So they just try to get away from it. But, they don't realize it's not just noisy in their yard, it's noisy everywhere. And so they keep hearing the noise and they keep running. And and then they end up, getting picked up. But then, of course, there's also a risk of them getting hit by a car or getting in a fight with another dog. And so it's just really important to think about this ahead of time and find some ways to keep your pet safe.
Yeah, just so disoriented. I mean, can you imagine the big bangs that are going on all around them? They most likely are just running constantly, like you said. So, and I've also experienced with my own dogs is that we would have friends that would come over, and of course, they come in through the front door, but my dogs had never run out the front door before. They had never escaped before. And man, I open the door and they're gone. And they run out that door so fast, and there's nothing I could do to stop them. So now we have to tell our guests, you have to come through the garage. We're going to open the garage. So we had to run out some precautionary areas in order to keep the dog in the house, because the dog wanted to escape. Even in our own house, they never even saw the house as safe because there's so many, the big booms, the big crashes that are happening all around them. They're so disorientated, even in your home. You don't think it's safe.
Yeah, totally. Another thing dogs will try to do too is hide. Like I think you were talking about your other dog where they would hide underneath the bed. Dogs are natural den animals, and they oftentimes, when they're afraid, they will feel safe under something. So that's why they go under the bed, behind the toilet. I've heard that one. I had a client once whose dog had all kinds of anxiety, and this dog was always most comfortable in the car. So if the dog got really frightened, they'd put its bed in the back seat of the car and just, if they closed the doors and the dog felt safe in there. I think they traveled a lot with the dog, and the dog was familiar with the car, and that was just a safe space for the dog. So I think that's one thing to think about is where, watch your dog when your dog's afraid. Where do they tend to go, and make a space like that accessible so they're not trying to break out of the house. I mean, honestly, I have heard stories about dogs going through windows. They get so scared and they just want to get out. If they get really frightened, crating is not a good idea because they will try to chew themselves out of a crate. So if they're really tightly enclosed and they panic, they will injure themselves. I have seen dogs come in with bloody mouths from trying to to chew out of a crate because there's no sense to it. They're just scared. And then what's worse is then they're afraid of that crate because they can associate that incident with the crate. And so if you do like to utilize the crate, to leave them in for periods of time when you're gone and they have this bad experience, then they won't go in that crate again. And so you want to be able to provide them with, access to some space where they feel safe. Don't allow them access to your yard if you're not there, or even if you are there, don't just let them out, let them hang out. Because if they get scared, they will try to take off. They'll go over the fence, or if you're having people over and, somebody forgets, leaves the gate open, that type of thing. And your dog gets scared, they'll take off. If you have people coming over with dogs, dogs get playing together and they'll all take off if they get scared. So you need to be really aware of, keeping your dog in a good safe space when the fireworks start happening.
I want to take a step back, and talk about this crate thing. Because imagine if the dog is the crate is not a safe space, or it's just a neutral space, and then you trap them in there when the booms are going off. What I really love is the story you told of the pet parents that you had that knew that the car was safe. So they understood their dog. They understood where they're being aware of where their dog feels that they're safe. So I think that's extremely important during this time, is what is a safe place in your home? Where does your dog naturally want to go to if they feel? Because I don't think the 4th of July is the first time you've seen your dog go through a moment of anxiety in its life, or it's gone through a scary situation and they want to hide really fast. Like, for example, my dog Leo, he hides behind the furnace. I have no idea why, but that's where he wants to be. And so we'll set up a bed behind the furnace for him, and we'll give a little path for him to get back there so he can go down and feel comfortable. But knowing your dog in this moment, I think, is extremely important. Is knowing what they need and what keeps them safe. And most likely it's not the crate.
Right. And you can leave the crate accessible, but I wouldn't lock them in. They might like to go in there, but as soon as they feel, like you were saying, trapped, they're just going to panic that much worse. And, as we said, can hurt themselves trying to get out. So leave it available if they're used to being in their crate, but don't lock them in.
Don't force them in there. Don't, because imagine if you're scared, the last thing you want to be is trapped. You want to feel like you don't have freedom. You can't get out, or you can't get away from the situation. That's an awful experience. In that moment is knowing where your dog finds comfort in your home and protecting them from incidental kind of that fight or flight response, like you said, where they will run, they will get out, and then they get disoriented. And that's when the shelter picks them up, or hopefully this doesn't happen, is that they injure themselves by getting hit by a car or attacking another dog or doing something that is not going to promote their safety. So is there anything else a pet parent can do in their home, or different types of medicines they could give, or different types of herbal supplements they could give that maybe might calm down that anxiety?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can help. But the thing with the natural products is they all act differently in different pets. So I recommend, if you want to try some natural products, get them ahead of time and experiment a little bit. I know in our neighborhood now, we're already hearing fireworks at night. People are, going and buying them. You were saying your son went and bought a whole arsenal of big, loud, noisy things. So people are stocking up, and they're not going to wait till the 4th of July. So if your dog's really sensitive, there's noise or thunderstorms. A lot of dogs that are afraid of fireworks also don't like thunderstorms. So you can kind of test it out with those. So things like essential oils would be one. So lavender is very calming, and you can get like the lavender essential oil, or they have some calming blends. Like I have a blend, it's actually called Calming or Calmer from doTERRA essential oils, and they make it in a roll-on, and it's great. I roll it on the inside of the dog's ears because then you're getting it on the skin in a vascular area, so it gets absorbed into the body. And I use that for my patients here. Sometimes if they're a little anxious, I'll roll a little bit of that on. You can put some lavender on your hands and rub it on their face. You don't want to get it in their eyes, nose, or mouth, but again, just on the ears or on the belly, areas where there's not a lot of hair, you can get it right on the skin. But lavender, chamomile, vetiver is another very grounding essential oil. So I'd suggest getting a couple of these and see how your dog reacts to them ahead of time. CBD is great. CBD is known to help with anxiety. We've talked about CBD before on the show. You got to figure out what's the ideal dose, because you might not give enough, or at certain doses, it can actually cause some more agitation. So you can be doing more harm than good. And usually at that point, you need to bump the dose up a little bit. So you want to find that dose where your dog's just a little sleep, little not so interested in the world. CBD is not going to make them stoned or high like the THC products will. So it's not dangerous, but if you give enough, it'll just, like I said, they're just not quite so concerned about what's going on. And so that's a great thing to try. But again, you want to try it ahead of time. Different brands will have different effects on certain individuals, because there's different strains of plants used. It's just plant genetics. So if you get some and just don't notice any effect at all, then try a different brand. But this is where you got to start now, because you got a couple of weeks to to work with this. And
you don't want to experiment the night of.
The last thing you want to do is give your dog something for sedation and leave, and you've never given it to them before. There's also the Thunder Shirt type devices, which can work in some individuals. And again, it varies with the dog. I have one of my little dogs is afraid. Wiley doesn't like loud noises. Of course, he's becoming less concerned the older he gets. I think his hearing is not so acute, or he's just like, there's no got the energy to worry about it. He doesn't seem to get but he used to just freak out every thunderstorm, every, the fireworks and everything. And I got one of those for him. It was a variation. It wasn't a Thunder Shirt by name, is a variation on the theme, but the idea is to put pressure on the body. And, they found this in like children with autism, hugging them, wrapping them in a blanket when they're just all freaked out. They get overstimulated very easily, and wrapping them in a blanket, holding them tight helps calm them. It calms the nervous system. And so it's worth a try. I mean, it isn't going to hurt anything. It's like putting a tight little vest on your dog. But again, get them used to it ahead of time. You don't want to put something brand new on them and they're worried about that. Then all of a sudden they're freaking out because of the fireworks. Get them used to having it on. And I think too, using a combination of things is probably the best answer, because everything is going to help a little bit. And we can't, for dogs that are just over the top anxious, like they're in danger of hurting themselves on the 4th of July, we can do a conventional sedative. I'll dispense some Valium. Sometimes I actually like Valium. It's actually pretty gentle and lasts 4 to 6 hours, which is usually good for the whole, 4th of July festivities.
Right.
And I think it works well on the 4th, because we know that this is going to happen. Thunderstorms are trickier because they blow in so fast and you don't necessarily have time, or, you're not even home. So having things like in the summertime, diffusing essential oils or putting some essential oils on your pet, the flower essences. So the Bach flower remedies, like Rescue Remedy, those you can actually put a few drops of those in the pet's water. And so summertime, we don't know when the storms are going to blow in. They can get a little dose of those flower essences every time they take a drink. And those are very safe too.
So it's safe to like just have as a normal daily calming, somewhat adding, like you said, adding it to their water. What are your thoughts on, you mentioned Valium. Well, that comes from the valerian root, if I
Yep.
remember right. What do you think? There are some products out there that actually have valerian root in the product. Have
Yep.
you experimented with those or?
Yep. That's another one. Any of the calming herbs,
Mhm.
passion flower, any of those can help, but they're different on every individual. So, you can take 10 dogs that are afraid of fireworks and give them all the same supplement and you'll get a different response in each one of them.
Right.
So you want to try it ahead of time. But yeah, any of those natural herbal blends. And you could even get the human supplements. You go to natural grocers, and sometimes the pet supplements have all these colors and flavors and all this other stuff added that I'm
Right.
not crazy about. But a good quality organic human supplement, if for especially if it's a bigger size dog, I usually say like a 50-pound dog would typically have half of a human dose. And you kind of, go up from there.
Okay.
These herbs, for the most part, are safe. You're not going to hurt them. And so, a 20-pound dog would get a quarter of a human dose. You have a little
Right.
chihuahua, you're just given a tiny little pinch,
Yeah.
but these aren't toxic. I mean, you're not going to give them a toxic dose or anything. So they're really safe.
So it's more on that homeopathic side where it is more of a natural from plant, that type of area. So by giving it, would you say that it's very difficult to overdose in some of those cases or near impossible?
I would say near impossible to overdose to the point that we're going to do any harm. I
Okay.
mean, you could have a dog that maybe has a sensitivity and it gives them some diarrhea or something like that. But
Sure.
overdosing, as far as being toxic, is
Mhm.
actually pretty hard to do. And actually, even the actual Valium pharmaceutical is pretty hard to overdose them on that too. It's extremely safe. And it's
Okay.
not, it doesn't suppress respiration or heart rate or anything like that. Some sedatives you give too much and they could get into trouble. They
Yeah.
give an extra pill, or two people give the dog a pill or something like that,
Mhm.
and the other one's given it. It could be more dangerous. Another real common sedative is acepromazine, and I don't
Okay.
like that one as much. It can last a really long time. I mean, I've seen some dogs will still act kind of loopy the next day, and I kind of want them to next morning wake up, go on with their life. It
Right.
also is a vasodilator, so it
Okay.
dilates the blood vessels and can drop blood pressure. And so there's a few more effects that I'm not
Yep.
as crazy about with acepromazine. So just an FYI, it's used a lot, but I would, if you could get the Valium or diazepam is the
Mhm.
generic, and you need to go there. I mean, I tried the natural things first, but
Oh, yeah.
if we're talking, I have known some dogs that just panic to the point that they'll hurt themselves.
Mhm.
I figure a little dose of Valium is better than that, or them getting out and getting lost. Or if you do, you're going to be gone. Some people head out of town over the 4th and your dog's going to be at home, maybe have a pet sitter, or they're in a boarding kennel, or you need to make sure that you have a plan for how to keep your dog safe and how to instruct who's taking care of your dog.
Mhm.
What are their plans? Are they just going to be gone and just leave your dog alone in the house? Or make sure that what's going to be happening on that evening if your dog is going to be afraid.
That's a great point. And definitely telling your caretaker that's going to help is this is now the new strategy. This is the plan. I want this to be given at this time. I want this to be given at this time based upon your own research starting today. Going out and getting some valerian root or finding a product like, there's a couple products that I've used that I know that when I give Leo the wrong amount of CBD, he gets more excited. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost like, it's like giving him Pepsi, like, or he's drank like 7 cups of coffee and he's crazy. Now, so we have stopped giving CBD from the calming aspect for him. Now it works for Mr. Cha-Cha, but not for him. But there's another product that has valerian root in it that when we give it to him, it doesn't knock him on his butt. He's not lethargic and loopy. He's just, that edge is taken off of him. Or he's just a little bit more chill and calm.
Yeah. And the other thing too, is you want to give these products while they're calm. If you try to give them products, and this actually even includes sedatives too. If you try to calm them down with something when they're already amped up, probably not going to work. And it can even make things worse because they just are sort of start fighting. Like if they start to feel a little sedated and they're already in this fight or flight mode, they're just going to fight more, and it can really make things worse. So you want to give it, and start, if you're just doing herbs, just start earlier in the day, start in the afternoon, give them a couple doses, get them loaded up, and give them a final dose as you get towards evening. And that'll really help.
Yeah, and see if their mood changes. But so there's a couple of things as we end up the show today, is taking a look at knowing your dog and knowing where their safe place is in your home. And knowing where safety is for them. And you've already probably identified a couple of these areas, but making it more comfortable and accessible for them. Like the story you told, the family opened up the car door in the garage. The dog jumped in the car, and that was his safe sanctuary for him to be, to be safe and protected. There's, Leo's down by the furnace, other dogs are, in the bathroom or wherever it is where you see your dog go in moments of this fear that they may experience. Make it more accessible for them so they can go in there and let them be in there. So and the next one is experimenting now with types of medication, for example, valerian root, Valium, if you have, Dr. Judy, great vet like Dr. Judy that can prescribe Valium, CBD, if you have tried that, but try, these different pieces. But would you recommend, and this just came up in my mind, would you recommend doing multiple ones at once or just doing one at a time, see if it worked, one at a time, see if it worked?
Well, I probably, if you have time to experiment, I would experiment with one at a time and see which ones work best. And then you can combine them. Because you can get an additive effect, but I think it's good to know, like you could give, if you just gave them 3 things at once and one of those things worked, but then another one caused more excitation, then you're going to be canceling out the benefit of the one. So that way you would know which ones are going to work best and at what dose. But then if you combine them, you could get an additive effect. I think adverse reactions to combining these natural products would be really, really rare. Another thing I just thought of too in the house is some sort of white noise or music, or, they have these products like whole tones, which are calming. They're just musical tones that this guy that put this out researched, and they're supposed to be very calming for the body. So that would be something else, if you kind of close up the house and if your dog's going to be there alone, and put some music on or some of these calming tones, or they have sounds of nature. I mean, you can get just about anything.
Right.
And again, maybe experiment a little bit, see what seems to relax your dog the most. Some like classical music, or I always thought, well, if it's going to be fireworks, maybe if I put on some rock and roll, they'll just think it's a bad drummer or something.
That's hysterical. Did it work?
Well, I don't know, because I was never there when I did that. Something I've been doing is I'm leaving, if I'm expecting a storm or something. So
Dr. Judy's got a heavy metal playing in the background.
Probably not. It was probably just wishful thinking, but
Hey, not a bad idea. But think of it like, as funny as that is that's an experiment. You're just going to go try. Did it work? Did they destroy what they normally destroy? Like mine go into the garbage and that's what they want. Now, so, did they do that, or are they acting differently? If it's rock and roll you play, if it's valerian root you give, if you're giving CBD, no matter what it is, All of these things can help keep your dog safe, but start now before the big extravaganza starts to kick in all of our towns.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Judy, thank you so much for this week's show. This was eye-opening and a fun show. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh, my pleasure. Always in the best interest of keeping pets safe.
Amen. Always. All right. You guys have a great day. Enjoy.
Bye, everybody.